Yeah, I hope you can tell I've been on hold for absolutely ages. Yeah, no, it's just a simple question about my car, really. So in the specs, it says I should get 29.1 miles per gallon. Yeah, and it's got a 60 litre tank. So that'd be like 13.19 gallons, right? So I should get 383 miles out of a tank. Well, sometimes I'm lucky to get 300. What do you mean you've never had this kind of phone call before? Okay, so a semi-stupid kind of intro to this video, but I'm trying to hopefully make the point, at least in my opinion, about things to think about if you're making a transition from an internal combustion engine, so a petrol or diesel car, over to an electric vehicle. And I think sometimes the way that we think about those two things needs some kind of adjustment to avoid essentially some disappointment. And so again, I'm not an expert on battery technology or internal combustion engines. This is just some of my opinion based on experience of having EVs for the last 4 years and kind of my usage and how I've realized how, at least I think, people need to think and kind of consider the difference between owning an internal combustion engine and an EV. So what I guess I want to start off with is, right now here in the UK, it's winter, it's pretty cold. There seems to be quite a lot of people been getting electric vehicles recently, which is a fantastic thing. And unfortunately, people tend to be quite disappointed with the range that they're going to get or are getting from the electric vehicle in terms of what the manufacturer states and promises. And while that is true, and it definitely adds to the range anxiety thing that happens with electric vehicles, which I'll get to in a moment, I think there's some things that we need to remind ourselves of. And I think it's just an evolutionary thing that we're kind of used to with internal combustion engines, and why we kind of don't give things certain faults. And I'm not trying to discredit that. I'll say they're irrelevant, because of course they are. And we're all entitled to our own opinion. And again, this whole video is just a flow of thoughts as opposed to like a well-documented script that I'm trying to read to. So hopefully it makes some sense, but I'm ready and waiting to be flamed in the comments of people disagreeing with what I'm saying here. So what I want to start off with is, regardless of whether you have an electric vehicle or an internal combustion engine vehicle, there are some things that are pretty much identical, but I think we take for granted. So in the winter, for example, all cars have increased rolling resistance because there's wet and dampness on the roads, etc. We have winter air drag, so the density of the air changes, so it's harder for the vehicle to move through it. We have reduced fluid flow because obviously it's cold, things are icy and things just naturally don't flow as well in the winter. And of course we have our heating on, we have heated seats on, we have heated steering wheels, the heated screens are on, all these different things that are kind of applicable to winter driving. And let's not forget that in the summer we may have air conditioning on, when we have our windows down, this increases drag. So all these things are affecting the efficiency and the distance that we can go in our vehicles. With a internal combustion engine as well, in the winter there is increased alternator strain because it's harder to turn over the engine, which again also has some impact on that 12-volt battery, which is giving you the cranking power to turn on the engine in the morning. And obviously then when it comes to electric vehicles, which is one of the things that people are realizing when they're moving to an EV and receiving it in the winter, is we can't get away from the chemical reaction issues of battery technology. This is the same thing that you'll see in the 12-volt battery, but then also in the battery pack of the car. So those chemical reactions are slower, so there's less current, and that's going to impact the power and the performance that you can get out of the vehicle, and ultimately will also impact the range. But even with an internal combustion engine, in the winter you'll generally see around a 15% reduction in range for your internal combustion engine. And if you're doing short trips, again, on an internal combustion engine, it can be around 24% for those short trips as well. Because again, the internal combustion engine also isn't getting warmer and everything. But I think the reason why I don't think I've really ever heard anyone complain that the range of their ICE vehicle does not meet the parameters as advertised. Because I think due to the fact that you can just go into a petrol station and 5 minutes later, pumped 60 litres of fuel in there and then left, I think we don't think about it the same way. We're just like, I need to go into the petrol station again and again. We seem to be in here quite a lot because it's obviously more flexible in terms of how you can kind of just pull up, pump and then go. And obviously with an EV, I think that's why we had the range anxiety and the increased frustration that perhaps we can't do the length of trip in the winter that the manufacturer states based on the WLTP range or the what's it called now? ETA or whatever it is. I can't remember. I forget the other one. And I think there's a couple of things for that I think people need to kind of think about. Is in some ways you can't treat and think about an electric vehicle in the way that you would an EV. And I can't remember who coined the term, but always be charging, ABC. And that in some ways is a very true statement. With a petrol car, you don't tend to keep your car topped up with petrol or diesel or what have you. You'll kind of get to a certain stage and then you will pop into the petrol station. 5 minutes later or whatever, you've filled it up and away you go. With an electric vehicle, due to obviously how charging efficiencies work, and also, again, if you have to charge your battery multiple times a day and do fast charging, again, you're doing that because of your driving behaviour requires it, but actually slower charging is going to get you better results at the battery, keeping it cooler, and actually, in somewhat, being in a cold climate actually helps with battery longevity. But really, you should be thinking about the fact that it doesn't matter for most people who don't have long commutes how long your car takes to charge, because in general it's going to charge overnight whilst you're sleeping. So every morning, if you need to, you're going to have your battery at 100% or 90% or 80%, and that will enable you to do your trip there and back and come back, and then in the night time again you plug it in, get back up to 80, 90, 100, whatever it is you need to. So it's a different mentality, where with a petrol or diesel car you don't do that. You don't go and do a full tank of fuel every day. Maybe because you don't need to, because you have that ability to refuel in 5 minutes. Also because obviously more fuel in your tank adds to the weight that may have an impact on your range. Obviously a full or empty battery has no difference in its weight, so it's not going to impact the range there. And also with the electric vehicles, again, the shorter trips do get hit a lot harder by the efficiency of the batteries. It takes a lot of time to warm up. But if you're doing a longer trip in an electric vehicle, you will see that range, even though it seems quite small at the start, 10, 20, 30, 40 miles, will slowly increase as the battery gets warmed up. Some cars are better than others in terms of the battery management and how they will preheat and warm the battery. But I really think that if you're moving from an internal combustion engine to an EV, you do need to adopt a different mindset. So think less about the fact that you can't pop in and fully charge your car in 5 minutes. Focus more on the fact that it's charging whilst you're sleeping. You don't need to go and stand in the cold anywhere and refuel your vehicle. That's happening overnight. And think about the convenience that every morning, if you need to, you can be at 100%. Obviously, battery manufacturers or car manufacturers shouldn't recommend that you charge to 100%. You want to be charging to 80, 90% and ultimately not leaving it below 20. Obviously, if you get below 20, that's fine. You just don't want to leave it for long durations of time. But yeah, I've not felt really much range anxiety since I first had an EV. If you're involved in a situation when you regularly need to do multiple 100-mile trips every day, then yes, an EV may not be best for you. Perhaps you want to consider a hybrid. But I think people should worry a little bit less about the claimed manufacturer's range on the electric vehicles, because I don't think we do that for internal combustion engine vehicles. And I think that, again, we're not having, I don't know if compassion's the right word, but I just think we're not thinking about things in exactly the same way, due to, again, like I said, the flexibility of how we kind of refill whatever medium that is, ICE or EV. So I just thought I wanted to put that out there, because I think I see a lot of hate and kind of people not thinking in certain ways about thinking about electric vehicle in the same way we do the ICE, in terms of the petrol pump philosophy, which I think is different. And you'll see in the summer, again, you're going to get much better range at your electric vehicle. Again, you're going to see a bit of deficit in your range, probably with air conditioning on, same as you would have in your ICE vehicle. But yeah, winter just unfortunately is bad for electric vehicles, but I think it also is bad for internal combustion engines. We just don't pay enough attention to it. I mean, like I kind of joked at the beginning of the video, when was the last time you know of anyone who rung up the manufacturer and complained that the car did not perform exactly to the specs on the exact driving conditions that were used in that little bit of the specifications? And in fact, I bet many people don't really check it that much. That's my thoughts. I'd like to hear your thoughts below. Leave comments. Please like, subscribe and share this video. Hit the bell icon and do all that kind of stuff. I hope this video was kind of helpful. Again, not scripted. Perhaps it should have been, and I've just been waffling on. But yeah, I think we need to think differently. And it still does make sense to me, electric vehicle. I'll never get an internal combustion engine again, unless I have to do, over 300 miles a day or something for work, for my everyday car. I'm still a petrol head, so I do like the sound of a nice engine on motorbikes and stuff. So I will have something like that for as long as I can, doing very short, minimal journeys. But I still think the way forward is electric vehicles, and you shouldn't be put off about the range any more than you are about the potential range of your petrol or diesel car.